Okay, today we're going to be talking about zeros. Remember, zeros are another word for factors. So we talked about them the other day. You know how to find factors. Today we're going to use synthetic division to find more zeros or factors. And remember, if you were to plug a number back into your equation, factors will always give you 0 when you evaluate at that number. It's also when you're graphing, wherever a graph touches the x-axis. So we're going to learn how to find them today, and eventually we will learn how to graph them, but not today. So you could find all of these values as zeros to help you draw it. So to help you find some zeros, to help you narrow down your guess and checking, there's this rational zeros theorem. Lots of words right here. Basically, what it means is whatever the first number is, no matter what, even if you have 10 terms, that first number, so we have a 2 here. When we list the factors, 1 times 2 is all we get. That is Q right here. If we do the same thing for the last number, 6, again, no matter what, it's always the last number. We get 1 times 6, we get 2 times 3, those are only factors. And that is P right here. If you do P over Q, or these guys, divide these guys right here, you're going to get a list of all the zeros that they could be. And we just have to narrow down which ones are right. Notice I keep a plus minus here when I'm solving them because we don't know if it's the plus version or the minus version that's a 0. So I'll show you a little bit how we got these. If you were to do this one divided by 1, we get 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 6 divided by 1 is 6. Then you can go through and do the same thing with the 2. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, but we've already used it, so we don't need to write it twice. 3 divided by 2 is 3/2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Already used it, you don't need to write it twice. So you can use it to narrow down, and then we do just guess and check. But you don't want to check any numbers that aren't in our possible zeros. And we're going to use synthetic division. When you're doing synthetic division, you do have to get a 0 right here, and then this guy right here is a factor. And then, whatever this answer is, we can move it to a new synthetic division again. Try a different number. If we get a 0, we know we found another factor. And you can keep going and breaking it down smaller. So you're going to be repeating until you either get to x squared or you get to the point where you can solve it super quick. Once you get to x squared, you could keep using synthetic division. It's not any harder, but you could factor if you think it's a super easy factoring problem. Or if you hate factoring, you could also use the quadratic formula, but I highly suggest using factoring or synthetic division. Once you get to factored form, so let's say we got to this point right here. And when you write it, you get x squared plus 3x plus 2. And you're like, that's a super easy hippo butt. So we break it up, we get x, split up the 2, 1, 2, plus, you check it, you get 3x. We're good. Remember, if you solve the parentheses to equal 0, so like here, parentheses equals 0, subtract 1. Here we do the same thing, but we subtract 2. Those are our zeros. So you can use synthetic division or you can use this factoring method. If we got the same number there, let's say both solved and we got -2 and -2, we call it a multiplicity. So there's more than one of the same number. And we'll show you that in an example problem. So if you look at this first problem, go ahead and split up the parentheses. Just like this. Some of them on your homework will be split already. Some of them you'll have to do synthetic division. But if it's in factored form already, that's called factored form, you don't want to do any extra work. So go through and solve each of these right now. Okay, here you should get 0. On the next one, we add 1, divide 3, so we get 1/3. And the last one, we subtract 6. These are our zeros, and there's no repeating ones, so we're going to list them. So -6 is the smallest, and we look for the exponents. This one didn't have an exponent, so there's no multiplicity for the 6. The 0, if you look, there's no multiplicity. The 1/3 had an exponent of 2. So that one has a multiplicity of 2. Exponent gives it to you. If it was a 3, multiplicity of 3. And that's it. Okay, looking at problem number 2. Go ahead and set up your synthetic division. They did give you A. You don't need to change the sign. You only change it if they gave it to you like this, because you'd have to solve it. So they give you a parentheses. That's when you change the sign. So go ahead and set it up and solve it. Okay, should look like this. When you go through and solve, double check your work with mine. Okay, we get a 0. I always box my final answer so I know if I got it. Remember, that's R, number, x, x squared. At this point, you can either factor it. So you could go over here and say, okay, I've got 2x squared, take away 7x, take away 15, and I could do belly button. Or, I'm going to show you the nice new way. We have 2, -7, and -15. Remember, it's the exact same as here. And I can just try a different number. So let's say I tried, 3. Okay? And I go through, I solve it, I get 6, I get 1, I get 3, I didn't get 0. So 3 doesn't work. So I gotta try something different. And then I like to keep a list on the side. Oh, that was too big. Okay. Okay, you can go through and try others, but remember, let's check for the rational zeros theorem. Just so I don't try anything that's not. So I tried 3, which was 3 divided by 1. Next, let's try 5. Okay, notice here, if you do 5 divided by 1, you get 5. So let's try it. Let's bring down the 2, 10, 3, 15, 0. We found one. So 5 is a factor. So now, if I were to write this, we get 2x plus 3. And then, if you were to solve this, subtract 3 divided by 2, we get -3/2. That's our third 0. So you don't have to use synthetic division again. You could if you want to, if you like that more. But you'll have a lot of different numbers to check. So when I write this, we're going to write them in order. So we had 3 different answers. Our original that they gave us, our 5, and our -3/2. So the -3 is the biggest. We didn't repeat it, so that's it. Then the -3/2, again, we did not repeat that number, and the 5. And notice, if you look at our exponent, 3, the biggest one, we should have 3 zeros. Okay, go ahead and try the last one. It's the exact same. A is -2 there. Go ahead and set it up and list your zeros. Okay, listing those. Just double check your work with mine. So we get 3, -6, 1, -2, -10, 20, 0. Okay, at this point you can factor, or you can do synthetic division. I'm going to show you how to factor it. 3x squared plus 1x, take away 10. When we factor, we get 3x and 1x. We get 2 and 5 plus and minus to get that opposite sign there. Check your belly button, and this one works. I'm going to bring it up here so we can see better. So we have to solve the two parentheses. So here we get 5/3, x plus 2 equals 0, and we get -2. And there's only 2 there. Where's our third? Right here. And notice these two are the exact same, so that's a multiplicity. So our zeros are -2 mult 2, or multiplicity 2, and then 5/3. And make sure you have the signs correct. Okay, last thing we need to look at is the homework. I just want to walk through a little bit with you. Oops. So for the homework, sorry, mine says 2.3 or 2.4. It is 2.3. Okay, on these first ones, all you're doing is setting up your synthetic division, and we just want to know if it's a 0. So they give us the first one, 3. Remember, switch the sign if it doesn't just give you the number. When you solve it, if you get a 0 here as your remainder, you say yes, it's a 0. If you get a number like 4 or something, you write no. That's what you're going to do on the first set. Second set, you're going to go through and actually find them all. So they give you the first one, just like our guided notes. You set it up, and then you're either going to set up another one, or you can do factoring. Either one works. Your final answer should be a list of zeros. Okay, looking at the next one, only one I want you to look out for is number 14. You're going to do synthetic division, and then you have to use quadratic formula, because belly button won't work, synthetic division won't work. And this is because you don't have a whole number or a fraction. You've got something with a radical, so it's too hard to find for the rational zeros theorem. The next ones, you're just stating the possible zeros. So those are the ones where you break it down. 1, 2, 5, 10. And you divide and list out all the possible zeros. And remember to keep your plus minuses. So look at that rational zeros theorem on your guided notes if you need it. When you get to the last page, the first 4 are already factored for you. Boom, easy work. When you get to the bottom, you're still trying to find all those zeros and it's not factored, and they don't give you any A. So this is where you have to just guess and check. If you use rational roots theorem, it can narrow it down. So like this one only has 4 options. So you've got 1 over 1, so plus 1 or negative 1, and you have 2 over 1, so positive 2 or negative 2. So this one only has 4 options. You're not going to go and try like 5, because that's not a possible 0. Again, these ones you can factor once you get to a certain point, or you keep going with synthetic division. But you need to list your zeros out with their multiplicities as your final answer.